Hi, Paola Jo from SederQuilts with a quick tip Tuesday, all about flannels and plaids and binding. I love flannel and I love plaids, and I particularly like it when I have a really nice soft plaid that's cotton and it's all woven, and it's not just printed, it's actually woven in there, so the threads are gorgeous on both sides. And what we're going to talk about today is binding. And when you're doing binding, it's really kind of hard to know sometimes how far apart or how close to put your stitches. I want you to make it easy. And so if you happen to have a plaid on the back of your quilt and you're putting binding on, you can use the lines in the plaid to figure out where to put your stitches, and it hides it nicely and it keeps it consistent. So of course it depends on how big your plaid is in the first place. Some plaids are much bigger, some plaids are really small, some are very inconsistent. But whatever your plaid is, you can utilize the lines to help you with placing your stitches. You're going to want at least 4 stitches per inch when you're putting on your binding. If it's wider than that, you could easily catch a fingernail or a toenail or an edge of a piece of furniture or something, and it would be too far apart. We're just doing the final attaching of the binding. It's already secured by machine and it's wrapped around, and so we just need to tack it on there, but you don't want it to catch and rip on things. So somewhere between 4, 6, or even up to 8 stitches per inch. But figure out what lines you're going to be using, and we're just going to tie a little knot on here. Obviously this is not a real quilt, this is just a little sample that I made up quickly for us for our demonstration today. But anyway, I'm going to secure that in the edging, and now we are going to take a little stitch on the lines. And you can hopefully see this thread because it's not matching perfectly, but we're just going to take one little stitch on each line, and then on this extra wide part we're going to go halfway in the middle, and we're just going to take a little stitch. Now I do the strength of my stitch in the sandwich part, the batting and in between there. That's where my strength is, and then I'm just catching a teensy little bit of the binding and on top here. So I like to match my thread color to my binding so you don't see my thread very much, and then we're just gonna take that in there. But because I'm following the lines that are already there in the fabric, it makes it very consistent in the spacing, and I don't have to stop and think a lot about it. Okay, so now we're gonna come in here at a little different angle so you can see this better. I have taken a stitch through the binding itself, and that's all loose there. I'm gonna pull it just a little snug. I'm gonna put my needle in right on the line. I want it to go into the middle of that sandwich and get the batting in there, and then I come back out again right here. I don't go through the back side. If you can feel it or see it on the back side, you've gone through the sandwich. We don't want to do that. You just want it to be in the, if it was a cream sandwich, you want it just to stay in the cream. You don't want it to poke through the other side. And then you come back out again. And just teensy a little bit there, but hopefully we can see this. We'll do this a couple of times from a couple different angles so you can see this. But stay on the lines of the fabric. And make sure you don't feel or see it on the back side. There we go. Okay. So now when we get to the corner, this part isn't really going to show, but we want to secure it way over into the edge here. And I usually do a bit of a knot here. I stitch it several times, and I'm going to tuck in and through the loop here. And that creates a little bit of a knot, and that secures it in the corner. Now we're going to fold this over, and I've already pressed this, but if my miter doesn't turn out perfectly here, we can adjust it a little bit. And you don't want it to be way off on the edge here. You want just to match it nicely. So I oftentimes use my needle and just bring it right in there where I want it to be. I grab a teensy piece of the binding, and then again I'm going to tie a little teeny knot right here. It's a second stitch, and then I'm going through the loop, and then when I pull it tight, it makes a knot right there. And then that corner, that miter, looks gorgeous. And then again, we're going to go down in here and come up on the line where we want it to be, because it wasn't perfectly on the line when we made the corner, so we just make our correction. Okay, we're on the line, get it in the sandwich, and come back up and out and through. Good. And then we take one more, and go like that. There we go. So I do a lot of this by feel. When I poke the needle through, you don't want to go all the way through and out the back side. You just want to go in and get kind of halfway in between into that middle of that sandwich there, and then come back out again. And you don't want to see it, you don't want to feel it, but you just want it to be riding through the center of the sandwich there, and then try not to poke yourself. There we go. And then those stitches just come out so nice, and they're so tiny, and if all the thread colors match up, you really don't see the stitches at all. But yeah, I think that works out really well. So just for clarification again, you have a piece of fabric on the back of your quilt, you have a piece of fabric on the front of your quilt, and then you have this batting in the middle. And there's enough fluff in here that when you put your needle in there for your stitch, you can't see it. It's just in the middle there. And so that's what I'm feeling for. When I take my stitch, I want to go under and all the way through this first layer of fabric, and you want to get into that middle of the batting, and you just want to feel that it's in the middle there, and then you want to come back up again. And there's plenty of space in between there. If you're poking all the way through and all the way up again, you're going to see your thread stitches there and stuff. But yeah, you just want to be getting that needle in the middle of that sandwich and not being able to see or feel it from either side when you're doing those stitches. One final thing to note, when you turn the corner, the spacing might be slightly different in the other direction. Even though this looks that it's very similar, horizontal and vertical, it's actually a little bit different. These lines are slightly skinnier than these lines, and there's two of these, but yeah, it gets just a little different. So if you're following your lines exactly the way it was over here, you might find that, oh, it's a little bit different here. So once you turn the corner, you have to kind of slightly readjust which lines you're following again. So instead of following on either side of that line, now I'm following in the center of that line, and now I'm back to just being fine again. So anyway, just be aware that on some plaids, they're very consistent, and others just mix it up a little bit, so it's a little more fun. So anyway, keep that in mind. So anyway, it takes a little practice, and it doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to be perfect. Just keep getting better and making it your own. And yeah, have fun with your quilting. So that's our Quick Tip Tuesday. Come back and see me again. Toodaloo.